Our protagonist wakes up in his apartment almost without any memories. He only remembers that he is an architect who worked on a new project and nothing more. The vast emptiness is in his mind, a dark space of nothingness. As he explores his apartment, he finds a picture of himself with another person who he can't recognize. The architect first sees a black mass in a fridge, then a larger amount of the same mass on a ceiling. He quickly leaves his apartment, and in a hallway, he sees a man who seems somehow incomplete. The architect leaves his apartment building only to find himself in a strange world full of floating islands, and the black mass is everywhere. It feasts on the matter and people, like some disease. This world defies the laws of physics, and every floating island has its gravity. They are all connected with an unknown matter, which gives them a similar look to the brain's nervous system. The architect sees a ruined building, and somehow he starts restoring it. However, he sees a creature in the distance. It attacks him, but suddenly a group of people show up. One of them kicks a streetlight at the creature with his superhuman strength. Everyone starts running, jumping from island to island. The architect is confused as he sees people on the island not reacting to them, which confuses him even more. The group jumps on a building, and the creature catches up with them. One group member, named the Phantom, stays behind to buy them some time. He succeeds, but in return, he gets a nasty wound from the creature. He joins the others, and together they continue their escape. However, the creature doesn't want to give up and manages to find them again. Another group member, the pilot, takes out a mysterious device and stack of dynamite, saying to the Phantom that he will sacrifice himself to stop the creature. The Phantom gives him the green light, and the pilot blows himself up together with the monster. As the group heads to their base, the third original group member, the Fly, heals the architect's wound and explains that he is in a coma like them. Everyone in this strange world is in a coma, and the whole world is shaped by the dreams and memories of those who ended up there. No one remembers their names. Instead, they are given nicknames. The group gets into a bus, which acts as a wormhole to the base. It works like a wormhole because some person remembers a specific bus station, the place where the group enters the bus, and the other person remembers the other station, the base, where our group ends up. The group arrives at their base, and the architect sees the leader, Jan, who is observing him from a distance. The Fly leads the architect to his new room while explaining that Jan sensed something special in him. He plans to lead people to an island where they will be safe from creatures. On the way to his room, the architect sees that every person's room is unique and different. The Fly explains to him that those are the dreams of the room's owners. They materialize while the person is sleeping, and if someone decides to go in there, they will be lost forever. The Fly then drops important information that Jan left the coma once, and that he knows what the world looks like. Before she leaves him to rest, she informs him that she and the Phantom are not together. It seems like she is interested in the architect. Later, the architect falls asleep and dreams about some buildings, a hospital, and a car crash. He wakes up and finds the crashed car from the dream, with his body in it. He figures out that this is the reason he is in a coma. The Phantom enters the room and starts intimidating him because he doesn't want him around the Fly. Then he leads him to training, explaining that some people have supernatural abilities and that being in danger helps them find out which powers they have. They go outside, and the Phantom orders his friend, the gnome, to shoot him. The Phantom catches the bullet and shows the architect he has super strength and fast reflexes. The Phantom explains more about the powers to the architect. He introduces the Spirit, a woman with powers to sense those hostile creatures, and the Astronomer, who knows every path in this world and creates valuable maps. We saw the Fly healing the architect, which means she has healing powers. Every power has a connection with the person's real life. For example, the Phantom was a soldier and the Fly was a nurse. Then the architect tells him that he remembers only his occupation, which becomes his new name. He fails the training, and the Phantom assigns him to work with a man called the Cable. The next day, the architect is working with the Cable when he notices that the Phantom is getting ready to lead an expedition. Jan approaches the architect and encourages him to go with the Phantom and the rest, because that may help him discover his abilities. The architect joins the group together with the Cable and a man called the Tank, and they head out to find an explosive to blow up the bridges that connect their base with other islands so creatures can't cross. To be precise, they need to find a submarine where the Cable worked in real life and get a gas tank, which they will use to create a bomb. On their way to the destination, the astronomer explains to the architect that creatures are called Reapers, and that all of them were once humans, but whoever dies in a coma becomes a Reaper. The group finds the base where the submarine is located. The astronomer advises the group to sneak in and reminds everyone that if they start blasting, they will attract Reapers. But the Phantom starts acting like Rambo, endangering everyone. The bullets start flying, and an intense battle begins. The situation quickly worsens as the astronomer gets shot, but the group manages to claim victory. They start extracting the gas tank, but when the Reapers appear, the Phantom orders everyone besides the gnome and the Cable to leave so that they can finish the job. The architect disobeys his orders and stays to help his friends. That encourages everyone to follow his lead, and the Phantom is crushed when he sees everyone disobeying his orders. He points his gun at the architect, but the spirit intervenes, and the Phantom shoots the chains that carry the tank. The Cable falls, but suddenly the architect uses his powers to create a platform and saves the Cable from death. The group then flees to their base. That night, they gather around a campfire and tell Jan what happened. Jan then figures out that the architect can build a whole new island where the people can live safely without the fear of Reapers. Jan announces that they will leave the base tomorrow and venture out to find a perfect place where the architect will build the island. Later, the Fly visits the architect, and they start bonding while talking about their pasts. The architect tells her that he thinks someone betrayed him before he fell into a coma, but that it isn't important to him because he now has a new life. The two of them kiss without noticing that the Phantom is spying on them. The next day, everyone embarks on a journey, and we can see the Phantom stealing a strange device. Their journey is going smoothly until the spirit senses Reapers. The Phantom and the architect decide to scout ahead. One Reaper attacks the architect, but the tank saves him, and together they rejoin the others. The Phantom shows up, and everyone learns he planted the device that attracts Reapers, hoping they will kill the architect. Suddenly, a black mass starts forming in his hand, implying that he is slowly becoming a Reaper himself. Jan shoots him, and a bunch of Reapers attack the group, killing the gnome and the Cable. Some of them flee, but the Phantom stays behind and attracts Reapers with the device. However, they know that he is one of them, so they continue chasing the survivors, leaving him to become one of them. As the architect runs for his life, he falls to the ground, blacks out, and remembers his past. A religious organization asks him to design their new church. His girlfriend was the Fly, who took him to the organization's old hospital building. Before he left the car, the Fly gave him a taser. There, he met Jan, the head of the organization, who told him that he was gifting a new life to people by sending them into a coma so they could have a perfect life there. But he needed an architect to build them a place to live. The architect attempted to escape by using the taser that the Fly gave him. He managed to get back to the Fly's car, but they crashed into a truck. The architect then wakes up from a coma only to find himself in the hospital and sees the Fly beside him. Jan shows up and explains to him that time flows differently in the dream world. The Fly fell into a coma just a few minutes before him, but in the dream world, months had passed. Then Jan shows him the Phantom's dead body, explaining that he wanted to stay there because he lost his legs in a war and was abandoned by everyone. Jan promises the architect that he will let him and the fly go if he builds the islands for the dream world inhabitants. The architect decides to trust him and goes back into a coma. Everyone follows the astronomer, who leads them to a place the architect should build the island. Jan shows up, and the architect fulfills his promise by creating a beautiful city. However, when he asks Jan to let them go, Jan refuses, saying they won't find any happiness in real life. He explains that the dream world is better for them, and the architect and the fly had a toxic relationship. The tank lost his wife and children, and he went berserk until police shot him, resulting in a coma. The spirit saw dead people all the time, and she was sent to the mental hospital, where she fell into a coma. The astronomer had autism and lived a lonely life locked in his apartment. The group decides to leave this illusion even after learning all of this. Knowing that this is all still a dream, the astronomer tries to shoot Jan, but he disarms him by using powers and wounds the architect. He heads to the new island, informing the group that they will soon start fading because he ordered his men in the real world to pull their plugs. The tank goes out first into oblivion. The astronomer realizes they can wake up if they find themselves in the architect's dream, so they head back to his room. The spirit stays with pain in her heart as she can't cope with the fact that her life is terrible in the real world, and soon she fades away. The trio enters the architect's dream, and they start looking for a room where the patients are. After some time of looking, the astronomer sadly withers, leaving only the architect and the fly. Then Jan shows up, ready to kill them both. The architect tries using his powers against Jan, but with no success. Jan gives one last speech before a Reaper stabs him from behind. The architect looks at the Reaper, who has a familiar face, and recognizes the Phantom, who now managed to redeem himself. Then he watches the architect and the fly leave. The architect begins seeing the room where everyone is kept, but the fly fades away. Heartbroken, the architect wakes up in the hospital basement, and he quickly removes all the equipment from the fly. And, luckily, she wakes up. At that moment, the staff arrives, shocked by Jan's death. The couple leaves the hospital with relief and joy in their hearts. A few months pass. The architect and the fly now live a happy life. The architect works on a new project he finds dull, but he is satisfied that he is financially stable. The fly heads to walk their dog, and before she leaves, the architect takes the new invitation of the organization and hides it in the drawer. With the open ending, we are left to think, is the architect pleased with his life and projects? Or does he want artistic freedom and to go back to the dream world to create what he truly wants? If you enjoyed this movie recap, make sure to hit the like button. And if you want to see more of these, subscribe to the channel and check out our other videos.